So, you've probably heard the saying, knowledge is power, right? We all have. But what if that's not the whole story? Today, we're going to dig into a pretty counterintuitive idea that sometimes knowing just a little bit can be way more dangerous than knowing nothing at all.
Okay, so picture this. A bridge collapses during rush hour. A doctor gives a patient a completely wrong diagnosis. A huge legal case just falls apart in court. On the surface, these things seem totally unrelated, right? Different professions, different worlds. But what if there's a single hidden flaw that links them all?
And here's the twist. The common thread isn't a total lack of knowledge. It's something much sneakier. It's incomplete knowledge. It's that dangerous space where we have just enough information to feel like we know what we're doing, but not nearly enough to see the full, complicated picture.
All right, so let's start by unpacking this central idea, this really dangerous misconception that any knowledge is always better than none. Because as we're about to see, that's just not how it works.
Here's the heart of the problem. When we only have a few pieces of a puzzle, our brain just can't help itself. It automatically tries to fill in the gaps. It starts making these false assumptions to create what looks like a complete picture, giving us this powerful, but often totally wrong, sense of understanding.
So why is this trap so dang effective? Well, it turns out our own minds are kind of working against us. There's a specific cognitive bias that's at play here, and it creates a really powerful illusion of understanding.
Psychologists have a name for it, the illusion of explanatory depth. Sounds fancy, but it's actually really simple. Think about something like a zipper. You know how a zipper works, right? Of course you do. But if I asked you to explain step by step the actual mechanics of it, how the teeth lock together, most of us would get stuck. That huge gap between feeling like you know and actually knowing, that's the illusion right there. And you know, this isn't just some funny little brain quirk. No way. This illusion leads directly to overconfidence. And that overconfidence leads to really bad judgments and terrible decision-making. It's like the very first domino that gets knocked over in a long chain reaction of failure.
This brings us to a really crucial idea that comes from the world of learning theory, and it's the difference between what we call deep and shallow knowledge.
On one side, you've got shallow learning. This is pretty much just memorizing isolated facts, the what, without any real context. But on the other side, you've got deep learning, and this is the good stuff. This is all about understanding the why and the how, and connecting all the ideas together to build a real, solid, usable understanding of a subject.
I absolutely love this metaphor. Trying to build more knowledge on top of a shallow foundation is literally like trying to build a skyscraper on sand. Yeah, the first couple of floors might go up just fine, but without a solid, deep foundation, the entire structure is just fundamentally unstable. It's only a matter of time before it all comes crashing down.
Okay, so now let's see where this instability has the most devastating effects. We're going to look at three very specific high-stakes fields where having a little bit of knowledge is an incredibly dangerous thing: medicine, engineering, and law.
In medicine, just recognizing a few symptoms is nowhere near enough. A doctor with a shallow understanding might see a familiar pattern and jump to the wrong conclusion, prescribing the wrong treatment, or worse, missing the real underlying problem completely. In this field, a complete, deep understanding is the absolute bedrock of patient safety.
It's the exact same thing in engineering. You can't just know that a certain material is strong. You have to understand how it behaves under different kinds of stress, in extreme temperatures, and over decades of wear and tear. A partial understanding, missing just one single variable, that's how bridges collapse and buildings fail.
And then you have the legal world. Knowing a single law in isolation is almost useless. A lawyer has to understand the full context, how that law has been interpreted before, all the precedents it connects to, and its potential unintended consequences. A fragmented grasp of all that can cause advice that completely unravels an entire legal case.
So what's the solution here? Well, the goal isn't just to accumulate more and more facts. The real goal is to elevate our understanding from simple knowledge to something much, much more valuable: wisdom. And let's be super clear about the difference. Knowledge is about collecting information. Wisdom is about knowing how and when to apply it. It's about understanding the context, the connections, and the consequences. And you simply cannot build wisdom on a flimsy foundation of incomplete knowledge. It just doesn't work.
So what's the big takeaway for you from all this? First, always remember that half knowledge is a trap. Second, the best and safest decisions always come from deep understanding. And that means you have to push yourself past just knowing what and really dig into the why and the how.
And finally, remember that true confidence doesn't come from knowing a few facts. It comes from genuine, complete comprehension.
So I'll just leave you with this final question to chew on. In your work, your studies, your everyday life, are you building real, deep knowledge, or are you just collecting facts? Because as we've seen today, that difference, well, it's everything.